Welcome to Retirement GPS, navigated by Znergy, your roadmap to a secure and confident retirement. Each week, we explore strategies, stories, and planning frameworks designed to help you navigate the complexities of life after work. From tax planning to investments, income strategies to risk management, our goal is to give you the clarity and confidence you need to make informed decisions. But retirement isn't just about the numbers. It's also about lifestyle, purpose, and peace of mind. We're here to guide you through both the financial details and the personal dimensions of this next chapter. Let's chart today's course.
Welcome back to the Retirement GPS podcast. I'm Ryan Zaharchek, your host, certified financial planner and founder of Znergy Retirement Planning.
And I'm Zane Belsack, associate planner here at Znergy.
Today's episode is important, one that people often think about, but probably put off more than they should, sometimes until it's too late. We're talking about estate planning. And if you just felt a little tension in your shoulders hearing that phrase, you're not alone.
And for a lot of people, estate planning sounds really complicated. It sounds really intimidating or something you'll get to later. But as we'll talk about today, it's really about making sure your wishes are carried out and that your family is taken care of, no matter what.
And I want to start this episode with a story because we have a lot of stories. So it's actually really hard to pick which one we wanted to use to demonstrate estate planning mistakes. But a few years ago, a friend of one of our members passed away unexpectedly. So this was actually not somebody that we worked with. He was in his early 70s, healthy, active, the kind of guy that was still playing tennis 3 times a week and volunteered at his church on a regular basis. So he was staying healthy and he was having this purpose to live. He wasn't even sick and he wasn't slowing down. And by all accounts, he had a lot of life ahead of him. And that's probably part of the reason why he didn't properly plan for his death, because he did feel like there was so much life ahead of him. But here's the problem. His estate hadn't been updated in 20 years. His last will and testament still listed guardians for his children who are now in their 40s and had kids of their own. His life insurance policy still had his ex-wife listed as the primary beneficiary, even though he'd remarried years earlier. And his financial accounts were scattered across multiple banks and brokerage firms with no clear list or instructions on tying them all together. When he passed, unexpectedly, his family assumed things were in order. But very quickly, they realized how wrong they were. His current wife discovered that the life insurance policy she thought would provide her with security was going to his ex. His adult children, who he trusted to work things out fairly, were left guessing about his intentions and started arguing. And because these documents didn't line up, attorneys had to get involved. Probate dragged on for months and months. Fees began to pile up, both attorney fees and probate fees. And ultimately, relationships became strained. And the results? Exactly the opposite of what he wanted. Instead of leaving his family with comfort and clarity, he left them with stress, legal battles, and painful divisions. In fact, 2 of his children completely stopped speaking to each other entirely.
That's really heartbreaking and honestly so relatable, because I think a lot of people assume, I did my will once, I checked that box, I must be good. They don't realize that life itself changes, and if your plan doesn't change with it, you're really leaving things up to chance.
Estate planning isn't just a one-time event. It's something that you revisit as your life evolves. And this story is a reminder that the absence of good planning or outdated planning doesn't just impact paperwork. It impacts real people, real families, real lives at the most difficult time of their lives. They just lost their loved one, and now they're bickering and fighting over things and money. A way we describe it is that estate planning is like a roadmap you leave behind for your family. Without it, your loved ones are left wandering aimlessly, not even knowing what the end game is, guessing where you wanted them to go. With it, they have clear directions, smooth transitions, and few detours. Here at Znergy, we recommend reviewing your will, living will, power of attorney every 3 years and fully with an attorney every 6 years. So why does estate planning matter? At its core, estate planning makes sure that your most valuable possessions, whether that's money, property, or even personal mementos, are passed along to the right people in the right way at the right time.
And it's not just for the wealthy, right? I know a lot of young people or even retirees think estate planning is something only billionaires with mansions and yachts need.
It's really one of the biggest misconceptions. If there's anything that you care about, if there are people that you care about, then estate planning is for you. Estate planning is really for anyone who wants to protect their legacy. Whether you've built up millions or you just want to make sure that your home, your savings, your heirlooms, honestly, even your kids go where you intend them to go. You need a plan. Even if your children are grown and out of the house, more to the point, you need clarity for them to know how things are going to pass. And that's really why we developed our brand new legacy process, because Zenergy guides our members through this legacy process, the roadmap that ensures that everything is handled clearly, efficiently, and most importantly, with compassion. It makes sure that things aren't missed. So let's talk about these steps. So legacy is our acronym, and it stands for first, we want to listen and learn. So we start by really understanding what your family's assets, what their liabilities, and then ultimately what are their wishes. So how do they want things to flow? Most people don't really understand the law behind things, and they don't even understand how things can be done. And we tell them, don't worry about the legality of it. Don't worry about the logistics of it. Just tell us in your own words, if you could wave a magic wand after your death and things pass exactly how you want, how would you want things to go? If you have young children, who would you want to be responsible for those young children? If you have a spouse in a second marriage and you have children from a prior marriage, how do you want those assets to flow? And tell me in your words so that we can figure out legally how to do it. Most people don't even understand what options are available to them, and that's not their job. That's our job. That's the estate planning attorney's job, to figure out how to do it. Your job is to figure out, what do you want done? Next, what we're going to do is we're going to evaluate the strategies. So that's our E in legacy. Evaluating strategies means that we look for ways to minimize taxes, minimize costs, such as probate, and frankly, minimize delays. Make things clear and easy so that things pass as quickly and comfortably as possible. We also want to make sure that there is no uncertainty in how things pass. We want to make sure that by being super clear and having things pass automatically where we can, that your heirs, whether it be your children or first wife, second wife, third wife, they're not involved in making any decisions about how things should pass. It's already done, it's already set up, and it's very crystal clear. Once we have all those strategies in place, our G is generating documents. So we want to put the documents that we need in place to execute on your goals, on your wishes. So that would be a will, possibly a trust, depending on your situation. We want to have a power of attorney. Power of attorney is extremely important, not necessarily for when you pass, but when you're alive. Because if you're incapacitated, we need somebody who can handle your financial situation, pay your bills, so you don't lose your house if you're in the hospital for 6 weeks. Next is healthcare directive. We want to determine someone who makes medical decisions for us if we're unable to do so. And having those things in place and all drafted by an attorney so that they're legal and they can't be challenged in court. Once we've generated our documents, we move on to our A in legacy, which is asset alignment. It's great to have all these documents in place, but making sure that your accounts are then titled properly. Beneficiaries are properly set to accounts that can have beneficiaries, and titles actually match your plan. So think of your estate plan like different buckets, right? Each bucket holds and distributes only the assets that are in that bucket to your loved ones. So your will is one bucket. A trust may be another bucket. Your life insurance and retirement accounts are their own buckets. And assets will only pass to your heirs from the bucket if the assets are in that bucket. So let's use an example here. If I have a 401k and I have a beneficiary of a 401k, and let's say I set that beneficiary, like this gentleman did, as my first wife, and I never changed that beneficiary. I can go to an attorney and put the perfect will in place and make sure that all my assets go to my now second wife. However, the beneficiary supersedes the will. And what that means is, no matter how much I want my current wife to get all my money, my ex-wife is getting that 401k because I never changed the beneficiary, and my will only controls the assets in that bucket. The 401k is not in the bucket because the beneficiary supersedes it. So we want to make sure that we have our beneficiaries in place. We need to get our assets aligned in the most efficient way to make sure the proper buckets are passing the proper assets to the proper recipients. Once we have that all in place, and by the way, that's a fairly substantial part of the estate planning process that is missed. I know lots of people who went to their attorney, got their will in place, got their trust in place, got everything in place that they needed to have, and guess what? They never titled anything the right way. So they set up these really complex trusts that pass things exactly how they wanted them to pass, and then they never put any of their assets in the name of the trust. So investment accounts, which are not retirement accounts, bank accounts, those things were never put into trust. So they never passed through the trust. The trust was actually an empty shell that had nothing in it. Think of it with a bucket with no sand in it. There was nothing in the bucket to pass. So when somebody passes away in that situation, the trust isn't going to actually distribute any of their assets. Everything will be distributed either through their will, and if they don't have a will because they count on the trust to distribute everything, it'll go through the normal probate process. So once we have everything aligned properly, we are on to C, which means we want to catalog our legacy. So that is making sure that we have the documents in a place where people know, the important people, the executor of our will, as an example, our children, our spouse and loved ones, know where the documents are. In those documents, we have all the documents we need, the wills, the living will, the power of attorney, the trust if we have one. We also would like to make sure that we have an inventory. As of this date, this is where all my assets are held. That's extremely important because it's great to tell your kids and loved ones that this is where my will is. But if they have no idea where your accounts are and how to access your accounts, is where it can be really challenging. We also want to have any personal letters. If you want to have a letter to a loved one that tells them about your wishes, maybe that's funeral wishes, so how you want your funeral to proceed. That could be something related to just a goodbye letter to a loved one. Those things are really important. One last thing I want to mention here, which is something people often miss, are things like passwords. So Zane, I'm going to put you on the spot here. How many passwords do you think you have right now in your life for all the digital accounts that you have? I don't need exact numbers. Give me a ballpark.
I would probably say 300.
Right. And I would say you're probably not that unusual, right? Most people have so many digital accounts now. Their bank accounts, their investment accounts all have access to passwords. So having a place where we can store our passwords that our loved ones, our executor can access those passwords seems like it is a great idea so that they can start accessing the information that they need to settle those things. Obviously, we want to be careful of security and being sensitive to that. So maybe it's really just, hey, this is my Dashlane password, which has access to all of my other passwords. So those types of things are the things that we want to think about when we're cataloging our legacy. It's not just about getting it in place, but getting in a way that's usable to the people that will be settling this estate for you. And that's our C. So now we're on to Y in legacy, and that's a yearly review. So here is Zenergy. The reason why we say yearly review is because we talk about it every single year. We say, okay, great, we did your will 2 years ago. We did your estate plan 2 years ago. Has anything changed as far as your life that you think might affect your estate planning? And typically the answer is no. Most people, especially if you've been married for a long period of time, they have what's called sweetheart wills, where we have everything gets left to my spouse, and if my spouse predeceases me, it all goes equally to our children. That's typically what a sweetheart will is. Most people have something comparable to that in place. And we just ask every year, has anything changed on that front? Typically the answer is no, but again, you might have a child that has developed a drug problem or a gambling problem, and you say, I'm just not really comfortable with that person being left with $500,000. I'd much rather put that money in trust so that it can be doled out a little bit more carefully for their needs in the future. That's an example of a situation that may have changed, that may affect us wanting to change our documents because our wishes now have changed. But typically, people are going to say, no, nothing's changed. Great. So we address it each year. Every 3 years, we actually pull out the documents at our meeting and we review them. And we say, okay, let's take a look at the documents. Let's see if there's anything that we forgot about that maybe we want to fix or change. In my case, I just had my second child actually go off to college. And it doesn't mean that they're certainly still dependents of mine. We're paying tuition for our oldest 2 children. So they're still dependents of ours. It hasn't really changed much in our will, but they certainly don't need a guardian to watch over them. We don't have to change anything in the will, but we just want to be sensitive to the fact that they don't need a guardian. When my oldest child graduates college, I'll probably start thinking about making that oldest child my guardian for my youngest child so that she can actually take care of the teenager as he's finishing out his childhood if something were to happen to my wife and I. So these are the things that we discuss on a regular basis and we review in our wills every 3 years. And then finally, we want to pull it out and have an attorney look at it every 6 years. 6 years, we say, is because that 5 to 7 years is the right balance of the laws and the rules changing. If estate planning rules and laws don't change every year or two, but if you look over a 5 to 7 year period, there could be some substantial changes. What do I mean by that? It doesn't necessarily mean the tax laws have changed. Most people are focused on the tax laws. But if you're an attorney, it's all about the language. You put certain language in estate planning documents that we know are going to be relevant and hold up in court. However, if there's now a precedent where that language isn't working anymore because somebody challenged this language and they won, now the precedents have changed, attorneys may say, we're not using that language anymore. We're now using this language because it's been challenged in court. And that just may need to be updated. And that could just be a simple $150 or $200 codicil or change to the will that isn't very expensive, but would keep the will relevant and keep it up to date. And that's why every 6 years we find it is the right cycle. So we work on a review cycle called 136. Every year, every single year, we talk about it. Every 3 years, we review it. And every 6 years, the attorney reviews it just to make sure that we're staying up to date. And this keeps your estate plan alive. It keeps it dynamic. It is not set it and forget it. Set it and forget it is what can get you into trouble. And you may think that my plans may not change, but guess what? Your life may change regardless of your wishes. And if the laws are changing, we want to stay on top.
And I just want to have a little call to action for our viewers. Make sure to update your beneficiaries, make sure to update your will, and make sure to update your titling, or your ex will get everything.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We don't want to leave anything to our ex, that's for sure. When we talk about estate planning and retirement, there are really 3 big issues to consider. First, keep your will and beneficiary designations updated. Okay, as Zane mentioned, go through your beneficiaries, just review your will.
And I've really seen that happen. An account that still listed a grandparent who had passed away, which actually caused delays and confusion just because no one even thought to update it.
And a quick review every 3 years can save yourself or your heirs just a world of trouble. Second, establish powers of attorney and healthcare directives. Really important. Estate planning isn't just about what happens when you pass away. It's also about who makes decisions if you can't. Having a trusted person legally able to manage your finances or medical choices prevents court battles and stress.
And that really hits home for younger people too. Even if you're in your 30s or 40s, you don't want your family scrambling if something unexpected happens to you.
And finally, for taxes and asset transfers, just keep an eye on it. I have to tell you, most people don't worry too much about taxes. The federal exemption on estate taxes is $15 million for a single individual and $30 million for a married couple. So the levels are really high. However, most people don't think about the inadvertent taxes. There are people that have received inheritances that were taxed in a way they never even thought they could be. That could be income tax because they inherited an IRA that is all pre-tax money. And it also could be you live in a state that has a high estate tax, especially if you don't have any children and you're leaving money to nieces and nephews. They're called Class B or C beneficiaries that actually may have a significant tax that you can work around if you manage it properly. So those are the 3 most important things for you to consider as you're reviewing your estate plan. So think of it this way. You shouldn't set out cross-country on a road trip without checking your car, mapping your route, and maybe even packing a GPS or using the GPS in your car. Estate planning is the same. You don't want your loved ones to run out of gas halfway, hit detours, or argue over directions.
And the legacy process seems a lot like the GPS system itself, even the one that we mentioned in previous episodes for Zenergy, keeping you on course, updating as laws or your life changes, and giving your family confidence in the actual journey.
It's so true, and it's why we like this concept of GPS, because it is all about planning out the route and just making course corrections along the way. And let's not forget, one of the most powerful parts of estate planning is the personal side. Beyond the documents and the strategies, we help members create what we call a legacy letter package. These are personal notes, videos, even things like family recipes that have been passed down for generations, stories that you want to make sure that are passed down and left to your heirs. And I have to tell this story because it was so frustrating to me and our family. Is my grandmother, who is Polish on my father's side, made the best glumki in Poland, it's stuffed cabbage. And we would go over there for every holiday. And that was like one of the core meals that we had on the table that was all full of food. And we loved it. And when she passed away, the recipe died with her. We never had the opportunity to get the recipe from her. We asked her on several occasions and she said, "Oh yeah, no, I'll get that to you." And one day she got sick and died very quickly. And that was pretty tough for us to have lost that legacy that was passed down probably to her for generations and died with her. Having that package to be able to leave to your heirs, the things that are important that you want to make sure continue to live beyond you, is something that we feel really strongly about.
I always think about how meaningful it would be to have something like that from my grandparents. Just hearing their voices, seeing their handwriting, even knowing their favorite songs. That's more valuable than any account balance.
And with technology today, there's so much you can do. You can record a video of yourself or your loved ones on your phone and set it aside, have it somewhere where it lives. And that may be in a digital setting, but at least you've got the passwords to be able to access it. A true legacy isn't just financial. It's personal, it's emotional, and more importantly, it's lasting. So let's talk about our action steps. If you're wondering where to start, step 1, review your will and your beneficiaries. Make sure that those things are in place, because remember, your beneficiaries will not pass through your will, and the assets that pass through your will not be beneficiaries. So they are separate. We need to make sure that they're both taken care of. Second, confirm that you have a power of attorney and healthcare directive in place. Don't leave loved ones without guidance, even if you are still alive, but if you're just not able to make those decisions and do those things for yourself. Talk to your advisor about tax strategies. Again, not necessarily because we've got this big estate tax looming. Most people don't. However, even small moves, doing things to avoid any tax liability that they may have on their horizon, can make a big difference, especially in the lives of the people that inherit your legacy. And consider that personal legacy. Consider, what do you want to carry on long after you do on the non-financial side? So that could be writing letters, recording videos, sharing family stories or pictures, leaving that recipe that every family member remembers at Thanksgiving for the last 25 years. Put that somewhere where they can find them and they'll treasure them for the rest of their lives.
And I'm going to leave you with something to think about. Estate planning isn't just for someday. It's really for today, because none of us know what tomorrow actually holds.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Retirement GPS podcast. Estate planning is not the most exciting topic. We are aware of that, but it's one of the most loving gifts that you can give your family. So investing 20, 25 minutes of your time to learn how to do it right is extremely important.
And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. And of course, please leave us a 5-star review and drop a comment if you enjoy what we do.
Until next time, stay intentional, stay on course, and keep planning.
Thank you for listening to Retirement GPS, navigated by Zenergy. To explore today's topic further, visit our blog mile markers at zenergyretirement.com/blog, where we offer detailed strategies, examples, and downloadable tools to support your retirement journey. Follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook at Zenergy Retirement Planning for weekly insights, checklists, and planning reminders. If you found this episode helpful, please subscribe, leave a 5-star review, and share it with someone planning for their future. Until next time, keep navigating toward a confident retirement. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended as investment, legal, or tax advice. Listeners should consult their own financial, tax, and legal advisors before making any decisions. Zenergy Retirement Planning is a registered investment advisor located in Red Bank, New Jersey.